How to ask for something that feels super uncomfortable. This video is about you asking for something you feel not comfortable with, like not working overtime that's not paid, having a particular rate paid for you and not taking on extra bits of a project. It could be asking your partner to prepare dinner for the Sunday, or like anything, really. Anything where you feel like, I'm not sure how the other side is going to react, or are they going to reject it? Are they, is there going to be drama? Is there like anything that makes you feel like a bit like cringing inside? That's what this is for. It is for you to be able to ask with less internal turmoil and with more assertiveness and certainty and more presence, so it feels good to you and to the receiver. Because I'm sure you've experienced it for yourself, or the situation where it's not only that you feel uncomfortable asking, but it's also that the other person feels uncomfortable because the ask was said in such a tight and unsure way, or the other way, maybe someone asked you for something, you were like, that didn't feel good to me, right? We don't want that, because that doesn't help either side. We want to be very clear in our communication, very clear for ourselves, and assertiveness is usually, I find, the words that describes it best, to have clear, honest, open communication that feels good to you and to the receiver. And to let go of any need of having to control how the other person reacts or what they do, because you're rooted in yourself and you know that everything will be fine regardless of how your ask is going to land with the other side. That's what we will look at, so that ultimately, again, you can ask for things without feeling all falling apart emotional about it, because that's just stressful. But also, of course, if you don't, it prevents you from asking for bigger things, for greater opportunity, for more money, for more time. You miss out on things, and of course we don't want that either, right? We want the best for you, and then usually often that also means the best for another person. The first thing is, first of all, acknowledging that something does feel uncomfortable. It might be very obvious to you, it depends. Some people feel a lot, but then get overwhelmed by the emotion. Other people maybe don't feel quite as much, and acknowledging that, this could be easier, or I always play small in this situation, or that there's something going on where it is not as easy as asking, hey, what time is it? Or like, is it 5 o'clock? And even that can feel scary if you're asking a stranger and you're not yet comfortable to ask a stranger, right? But I'm sure you can see the difference, that some things just, you have zero reaction and you just do it and you don't even think about it and just feels completely right. And then there are other things, the big ones, that's why I call them the big asks, where you're like, and you might even procrastinate around it or push it off because it just feels so uncomfortable. And again, that's of course what we don't want. So first of all, acknowledge where you feel uncomfortable. Just acknowledging that, or you might want to write it down or speak it out loud, say to someone, but just being clear, okay, this situation, this person, that issue, that ask, asserting my boundary, that doesn't feel good. And I didn't say that at the beginning, depending on your journey, or what you've already done or read or consumed, you might be aware of, that often that has to do with how we were brought up, our childhood, what we inherited, nervous systems, trauma. There are a lot of words that we can put around to describe why for some of us, things that feel super easy to other people sometimes can feel a bit like, at least a lot of energy. It does not feel easy yet, but it doesn't mean it can't change. And I want to give you some more practical tools today for how you can change this. And the first one was acknowledging it is uncomfortable or feels difficult. And then we get to number 2. And number 2 is your nervous system being aroused, or your body feeling tense, or your mind racing in all different directions, or your emotion overwhelming you. We need to find something that calms your body, mind, your nervous system. I use different words, they all mean the same thing, really. Your body down. And you can already see, like, I like to use, this is actually a combination of a few different things. I was about to say soothing touch, where you just touch your body somewhere that feels good to you. And what the beauty of that is, like, even if you're in a meeting or somewhere where you can't take out time for yourself, you could just put your hand on your leg or, on your wrist, and just to remind yourself that, I'm actually here for me. I've got this. I'm like, It might give you this feeling of an out breath. Potentially out loud, or again, depending situation, at least internally, right? So that's already one beautiful technique. This is also a self-hug, of course, of kind of, just feeling like, someone's looking after me. Someone's got me. I'm giving myself a hug. And there's also the thing which is called the butterfly hug, which has the same position. I'm not going to go into this right now, but that's also very regulating if you do that. Nervous system regulating. Again, you might know this, but our nervous system has just different states, and it can be very aroused and very active and very anxious, or it can be more like rested and calm, and usually comes back down to feeling safe and feeling supported and feeling like nothing can go wrong here. Like we've got everything we need to express ourselves freely, or to make that ask, or to say an uncomfortable thing. So that's number 2, right? Finding something that helps you to calm yourself down. And again, it could be journaling if you have the time, self-talk, kind self-talk, compassionate self-talk. Could be even, yes, what I just did, hand on your chest or something. By finding something, and I'm sure you have something. For someone, it's an essential oil. People get it through yoga. There's so many different ways how we get stepping outside, under having sky over your head, seeing some trees or something, and just something that makes you feel like, I'll be fine. Like no matter the outcome, I don't have to think, that's not my responsibility. I'll be fine. I'll just make sure my body feels at ease. I feel relaxed, and I'm just feeling in a good space. And you might not even want to think about the issue for a couple of minutes at least, until you really feel like, all good here. And then if you can, you might want to lean back, or if you have the time and the space, even lie down on your bed for a couple of minutes, not to fall asleep, but just to signal to your body that it is supported, and then someone's looking after it, and that no matter what's going to happen during saying something, asking something, or the response you get, you will be safe, right? Physically safe, also emotionally safe, but especially, first of all, signaling your body physical safety. And I will link a free resource I have about nervous system regulation in the description. If you're very new to this, or just generally if you want to have a few more ideas of what you can do to calm yourself down, that might be quite useful for you. And this gives you a bit more context of what the whole nervous system regulation thing is about, and different states of your nervous system, and how, like tools for what can help you to calm it down. So I would say download that. It's a free PDF. It just gives you a few more ideas of what you can do in this step 2. So we've acknowledged you're feeling uncomfortable, and then we did some beautiful body, mind, nervous system regulation to just reassure ourselves that regardless of what's going to happen, we will be fine. And then before you now go in and make the ask, there's one more thing to do, step number 3, and that is reaffirming for yourself what you actually want. Because for some of us, I didn't say that at the beginning, we never were very good at really affirming for ourselves what we want. Because again, maybe it's the way you were brought up or socialized, or maybe you had a lot of disappointments, and your body might just learn, like, I'll never have what I want. I can have wishful thinking. I'll never get the thing. And so you learn to water down your own wishes, your needs, your desires, because parts of you don't believe you can actually have them. So that's why it's super important to, before we actually do the ask, to affirm what it is that you want. It is more free time. It is more money, or it is this particular amount of money. It is not having to work overtime without being paid extra. It is not having to fetch my kid at this time, but at that time. And notice, again, you need to have some body awareness with this, which you hopefully get because you already did step 2, which is calming yourself down. And you notice if that, first of all, how that feels. Like, is that okay, or does it feel uncomfortable? Because, oh my God, you're asking for things for yourself. Again, depending on your history or your journey, that can still feel uncomfortable. So if there's any guilt coming up, like, I can't ask for time for myself, I can't ask for anything else, I can't ask them for a favor, I haven't done anything for them, for anything of this, just notice it, right? Just notice it, and notice if you have a physical sensation with it, because that's usually way stronger than if you might get a thought, like either of them, but definitely always see what's going on in your body as well, as much as you can. If you feel nothing, then you notice that. And then really, that's why I keep using the word reaffirming, also reasserting for yourself, this is what I want. I want the extra half an hour. I want the 500 pounds. I want support on this project. And you might have to repeat it a few times. And again, notice how it feels until it feels, actually I can have, that sounds fairly reasonable that I want them, right? There's no need to justify or, go into any stories. I can just say, this is what I want. And you might do it to yourself. But again, if it's in a situation, of course, you have a lot less time. So you might have to do it internally, but affirming, this is what I want. I want the half an hour. I want this rate. I want the time with my kid. Or the time without my kid. I want this. I want that. And the more you do that, or the more intensely you do that, it almost gives you another layer of calm or almost stillness. Like if you really affirm it, assert it, I find it can bring a lot of stillness again to my nervous system, to my body mind, because it gives you a stronger sense of who you are and what you want and what you stand for almost, right? That sounds almost a bit too big, but in a way, that's what it is. It's these little things that can feel very big when we ask for them, that affirm our position on this planet, on this life. That's really what we're doing. But just notice, if you notice any shift from, I shouldn't have this, to, okay, this is what I want. And notice, you don't want to think about how the other side might perceive that. That's a key bit. It's all about you affirming for yourself what you want, without any space given to what someone else's reaction might be. So that's step number 3. And you might notice this a very subtle physiological shift when you really feel like affirmed it to the point where it feels real and needed and necessary, and in a way so much that it is you, that there's no alternative. It is just an extension of who you are, having this thing, right? Which doesn't mean we cannot talk about, like what works best for both sides later. But first of all, you need to be really super clear on what it is that you want. Now, with this in this more calm state and knowing exactly what you want, then you can make the ask. And you will be in a very, very different physiological and headspace if you ask than if you hadn't done that. And again, now I've taken a bit more time. If you can take the time, that's amazing. But even just for practice, doing it a few times with more time so that you then speed up the process in a situation, like if it's more an immediate thing where you just have a minute of something to prepare yourself to ask, if at all, then of course it gets easier over time. And also like noticing how the difference between asking and part of you feeling like you can't even have that thing, and it's difficult, and you have to, assert so much effort and energy to get anything or to not upset the other side, versus just being so calm and rooted in knowing what you want and what's important, and that's non-negotiable. There's no emotion in the ask. The ask is just an extension of your state of being. It's a completely different way of asking. And the beauty is, it's not only easier for you and gives you better results, it feels good to the other side too. Because if you just speak from the depths of who you are, it gives a completely different experience to the other person. Because, the 98% of people who are actually decent people and interested in the well-being of others, they all of a sudden have much more of a sense of you, and are very likely much more interested in you getting what you want, and maybe even interested in helping you achieve what you want. In a way, it gives them also a role in this whole game of you getting the thing, and they might really enjoy being able to somehow enable you getting that thing, and often not in a way that's taking anything from them, but it's going to enrich them too. And there's not going to be defensiveness. There's a lot less chance to argue. Like if you come from a very calm and confident space and ask for something or state something, usually that's how you will be responded to, right? If you just can say, and I need this to be done by 4:30, the other side is possibly like, oh yeah, okay, sure, yeah. Maybe they didn't think of having it done at that time, but they will, right? They will be like, okay, let's. This is how it is. Or if it's really impossible, maybe they ask why, or can we change it or something, but then you have a completely basis, of course, to speak about it. So just to recap, acknowledge if something's uncomfortable. Do whatever you need to do to bring your body, mind, and your nervous system into a different state. Reaffirm what you really, really want until it feels embodied and real and non-negotiable. And then make the ask. I would love to know what resonated with you, what you find particularly useful, or where you feel like, oh, I'm getting still hung up on this thing. Just type it in the comments, or like if you don't want to type, then you find me on Instagram and send me a private message. Of course, I would love it if you subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet, and because that also indicates me if something works or resonates with people or it doesn't. And if you haven't got it yet and feel like, oh yeah, that's something I maybe could need a few more ideas or really understand how to bring myself in a calm, regulated state, then download that nervous system regulation checklist that I've also linked. And I will see you next time.